All right, guys. Let's get going. We're going to get into the podcast momentarily, just getting comfortable. And we're talking about information without execution on the show today. So we're going to be starting in about a minute or two. We're talking about information without execution. And we're going to be talking about this because this is honestly a very important problem that so many people deal with, myself included at times. It's something that I've gotten a lot better at in the past, but something that's going to bring a lot of value for you guys. So as you tune in, make sure to drop a comment as you tune in. Let me know how your day's going. Let me know how your week's going. Let me know what you've got coming up. Let me know, how training's been, if you're struggling with anything, because as always, guys, the goal of this show is to help you. The goal of this show is to help athletes build their dream careers in sport, as I say every introduction. And the best way that we can do that is if we hear from you. The best way that we can do that is if we hear what you are struggling with, what you're dealing with, and that way we can create episodes around it and create solutions for those issues that you are seeing within your training and within your preparation for your sport. Now, excuse me. So let's get into the show. We're going to be talking about information without execution, and we are going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we're talking about information without execution. Now, what do I mean when I say this? I'm going to go right into an example of myself coming up in my coaching career. And don't worry, it's coming back to relate to all of you as athletes, and it's coming back to relate to all of you as athletes in a way that can help you very, very quickly and hopefully bring some awareness to some mistakes that I know a lot of you guys are making. Now, when I was first starting in coaching, one of the most common questions that I would get from other coaches is, how many books have you read lately? And the whole idea was like, if you're not constantly educating yourself further, then you're falling behind. If you're not always reading a new paper or reading a new book or watching a new video or doing whatever, then you're falling behind. And so I found myself always trying to find new information. And, I was reading books. At the time, I was much more generalized in my career. I wasn't focused in as much on combat sports athletes at the time, but I was finding myself reading books on working with types of athletes that I had no interest in working with because, I've always got to be educating myself. So now I understand more about how to work with a runner when I had never had any interest in working with runners. And, I bought this book on conditioning for soccer because, I got to continue to educate myself. I didn't work with any soccer players. And I was reading articles on like how to better train somebody that was dealing with, all kinds of different ailments. And I remember one day sitting, as I was reading in a 30-minute break I had between clients, I was reading a book about an article about how to better train somebody with arthritis. And I stopped and I was like, what am I doing? I work with, as a rule, young, healthy athletes in the prime of their lives, in the prime of their careers. Arthritis is not something that I come across. Why am I spending time reading about this thing that's not going to be useful to me? And from there, I made a rule that I learn about what I need to learn about to help me better my craft for the people that I'm actually going to work with. So since then, don't get me wrong, I still educate myself a lot. I still read a lot. I still watch a lot. But I learned from coaches that actually have applicable knowledge to the population that I work with. For a long time, I was working a lot more with hockey players. I was working a lot more with football players. And so I was reading and watching a lot of coaches that work with those populations. And the big thing that I was getting out of these books is I was getting knowledge that I could actually apply to my athletes. Now, on top of that, though, one of the big struggles that I had was I'd be reading and watching all these videos and doing so much more, but I wasn't actually taking that information and doing something with it. So I'd be reading these books, I'd be watching these videos, I'd be doing all of this stuff. And then I would just keep reading and watching and doing and reading and watching and doing. And all that time I spent educating, I wasn't spending applying. And the reason that story, you guys, is because this is something that I see happen all the time with athletes too. Over the last couple of months, my following's grown quite a bit, and I get a lot more questions in my DMs, which, don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful for it, that people see me as that type of authority and understand that I can help them when it comes to building their careers in their sport. But a lot of the time, the questions that I'll get, I can tell people are just asking the same questions to multiple people because they're not getting the answers that they want. I'll have people ask me a question about, how do I build my strength without having access to a gym? And it's like, are there body weight exercises you can do that'll help build strength? Sure. Is that really going to be the best way to actually build your strength? No. And that's also like, when this kind of stuff happens, they'll ask questions about topics that I have 500 videos about. What's the best way to improve my conditioning? Literally 95% of my page is videos about conditioning. So when you ask this question right off the start, what it's showing me is you haven't done any research. You're just asking more questions to more people, hoping that someone just gives you a trick, right? And the problem with that mindset is there is no trick. The problem with that mindset is there's no one thing you're going to do that's just going to magically create this unbelievable conditioning for you. The way you're going to do it is consistently working at it. And so when you ask questions about, what's the best way to do this? What's the best way to do that? What's the exercise I need to do to improve my punching power, or the session I need to do to improve my conditioning? It doesn't come down to just one. So instead of spending all your time asking questions, trying to make it perfect, spend your time actually working on it. Spend your time actually trying to improve it, because that way you're actually going to get some results. And then you can start to work on improving it as you're already getting results. But if you're just spending your time asking more questions to more people and more questions to more people and more questions to more people, you're missing out on all the results from actually just doing some fucking work. And this happens a lot. One of the things that I've had quite a few athletes say to me is, I'm afraid to be doing the wrong thing. And I'll tell you right now, doing something is better than doing nothing. Like, I talk a lot about how running is not the ultimate way to condition for combat sports. But if somebody said, well, I don't train at all, but I don't run because I know that that's not the best thing, then I'd be like, well, what the hell are you doing? Like, you got to do something. Like, I'd much rather see someone using the old school methods that aren't as good than just doing nothing and just asking more questions about, well, how do I make it better, and not actually executing on it? Because there's no perfect program, and running's not bad for you. It's just not the best way to get the best conditioning to come back to combat sports. So instead of sitting around asking 5,000 more questions, trying to figure something out and not actually getting to work, go for a fucking run. Right? Or if you're watching videos on my page and you're seeing all these different types of conditioning sessions, a much better thing to do than just keep watching more and more and more and more and more of them is say, okay, I've got 3 different aerobic conditioning sessions that I saw on Coach Dusseault's page. Perfect. I'm going to go do those twice a week for the next 6 weeks and see how my conditioning starts feeling. Because even if you don't space them out perfectly, or you don't have the perfect balance between strength and aerobic and all these other things, you're going to get better by doing the work. And then as you start to do the work, you can start to see, oh, when I do 4 conditioning sessions a week, my body doesn't respond very well. I feel like I'm always overworked. Well, maybe I should take it down to 3 conditioning sessions a week. Right? Oh, I took it down to 3 conditioning sessions a week. I've started to improve. But you don't know these things until you start doing the fucking work. And this is the point that I want to make sure we're driving home here. There's always going to be better ways to improve your conditioning. Like, even now, as a coach who's been doing this for a very long time, I know that there are always going to be better things that I can be doing. I look back at programs that I wrote for athletes 3 years ago, athletes at a high level competing professionally. And when I look back at those programs, it makes me sad because I'm like, man, I thought I was smart. But then the more and more and more I continue to learn and I continue to apply, the better and better it gets. Right. But the same deal for me writing programs for athletes as for you trying to write programs for yourself. If I didn't actually apply the knowledge and try things, then we wouldn't get the result. Right. But there's a lot of things that, I've read in a book and I've gone, oh, this is perfect. This is going to work so well. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to lay it out. And then I have an athlete do it and I'm like, ugh, I don't like that at all. But again, if I didn't go and try it, we wouldn't be able to make the changes. And if we weren't able to make the changes, we wouldn't be able to improve upon it and get better results. And I've had other exercises where I've thrown into a program and I've seen an athlete at my gym doing it incorrectly, but the way that they did it, I actually like better than what I did. So I switched the way I have my athletes do those specific exercises because I like what I got out of them doing what they were doing better than doing what I was doing. But again, it comes back to that same thing. If you don't try it and you don't actually execute on the information you're learning, you're not going to get the result. It is not going to be perfect right away. It won't. It's not going to be perfect ever. But you need to put the work in if you want to see the improvements. So what I really want you to understand here is when you watch the videos on my page, the different conditioning circuits, things like that, come to me with questions showing that you've actually thought about it. What is the best way to improve my conditioning? My conditioning is not a question you should be asking after seeing 800 plus posts talking about different ways to improve your conditioning. A question that you should be coming to me asking is, hey, I saw the videos that you did about this, this, and this, and what I was thinking about as far as trying to improve my conditioning is doing something like this. What do you think? Now you're giving me something to work off of. You're showing, hey, this person's actually trying things, not just saying, hey, do it for me, right? And I'm not trying to be a dick. Like, I'm happy to have conversations with people. I'm happy to, see if I can guide you in the right direction. But if you're trying to create the perfect conditioning program, it doesn't exist. So continue to ask more questions and more questions and more questions until we try to create this perfect program. It's never going to work. A year from now, you're going to still be sitting in my DMs being like, well, what's the best way? But you did all these other, what's the best? There is no fucking best one. There is no right way. There is no perfect method. But if you actually try it and you start seeing how your body responds, then you can come to me and you can say, hey, I've been doing these aerobic sessions for the last month. My body feels really good, but what should the next step be? Now what you're telling me is, hey, I tried something. Hey, I'm working at it. Hey, I'm doing my side, my half of it. Do you think you could guide me in the right direction? You're not just saying, hey, do all the fucking work for me and just tell me everything that I need to do. Because that's not the way to succeed. Even with my athletes, the people that pay me money, the people that are actually in my programs, it's never just hey, this is exactly what you're doing. Don't question it. Every single week, I'm asking all of them, hey, how's the program feeling so far? How's your body responding? Are you feeling good after the sessions? Is there anything else we feel like we need more work on? Because again, there's no perfect program. I understand the ins and outs of building a better athlete and helping an athlete succeed when they come into a fight. I understand it. I've been doing it for a very long time. Not saying that I know everything about it. I'm continuing to improve my knowledge. But you understand yourself. You are going to be able to feel how your body responds. So if I have an athlete that's telling me, hey, when we do these bike conditioning sessions, like my hips really hurt and my back is messed up and blah, blah, blah. Well, then more bike conditioning isn't the best program for them. Whereas bike conditioning is one of the things that I love to do the most, right? But we've got to find ways to adapt to make the best program for that one individual. So if you want to find the way to make the best program for yourself, you need to take some information, you need to go fucking execute on it so that you can see what is actually working. And if you can see what's actually working, or what's not working, then you can start to make changes, or you can start to ask questions based off of something that you actually know about yourself, instead of just trying to take in as much information as possible and just sitting paralyzed by all the different information that you've taken in. All right. So I know I went off on a couple of little rants there, but this is something I'm super passionate about because, again, like, I want to really reinforce as we wrap this up. I like having conversations with people in my DMs. I like, when people are asking me about conditioning stuff and having those conversations. What drives me crazy is when you give off the impression that you're not willing to do any of it yourself and you're just looking for that quick fix. And the reason that drives me crazy is because that quick fix doesn't exist. So if you come to me with an actual issue, hey, I've been working on this is how I've been doing it, and I've been having this struggle, now I can point you in the right direction. I can say, oh, well, instead of doing this, try something like this, right? But if you just come to me and you say, what's the best? It's like, there's no fucking way to answer that. So guys, I hope that was valuable. I hope you got some information out of that. I hope that you learned something. And if you felt a little bit triggered by that, understand this isn't a shot at any one individual. But what that likely means, if you did feel a little bit angry by that, what that likely means is you need to start putting in a little bit more work and stop looking for just so much information that's going to end up paralyzing you. So as always, I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you're all having a fantastic Thursday. If you are not part of my free Facebook group yesterday, DM me, because if you DM me, I will get you a link for that group, and you can join us tomorrow for Q&A Friday in the free Facebook group, which we do every single week, where I jump on and I answer your questions directly. So guys, I appreciate you all again. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you all on the next episode. All right. I'm going to stick here for a couple of minutes and do a little bit of Q&A, but